me make sure. Let me make sure everything ready to go. Okay. Okay, that's what I had to do. All right, we ready to rock and roll now, chat. I got to figure out how to do this. 4 out of 5. I got all my channels added. Welcome Kick, welcome Twitch, welcome Rumble, welcome YouTube. We all ready to rock and roll. We had a little hiccup, but we back now. And we're not going to be that long on this live. But we got everything ready to rock and roll now. Yeah, we had to do a little and get back on track. And we back on track. But Marco Rubio is testifying right now. You know, yesterday he told us that the war was over, but we all know it's not. So let me make sure everything's straight. Let me make sure. Let me make sure everything's straight. Back on track, but okay, we good to go. We good to rock and roll. Let's see. What else I need to look at? Let me look at. Let me see where we at on this. Let me go over here. Try to get everything ready to rock and roll so we can take care of business.
We know why October 7th happened. Because Israel and Saudi are very, very close. And in Iran's perspective, dangerously close to a normalization agreement. And
all right. We ready to rock and roll, chat. Everything ready to go. Kick is in the building. Rumble is in the building. YouTube is in the building. Who else? Rumble, Kick, Twitch, YouTube. Everybody's in the building. All right, chat. Marco Rubio is back testifying. Just like yesterday. He's back testifying. So I got to do one more test before we play it. I hope everybody having a good morning. As we get ready to rock and roll, I got to do one more test. Marco, I can't believe what Marco Rubio said yesterday, Chad. Okay, there we go. I can't believe what he tried to tell us yesterday. Let's see what Marco Rubio says today. Let's see. Let's see what he's going to say today. Okay, that's ready to rock. We got everything ready to go. Y'all, as y'all come in, please do me a favor and double tap the screen as we get ready to proceed. Let me see. I got to go back over here. Bear with me, chat. Bear with me.
Disclosure form, which will detail those dealings.
Bear with me. Bear with me. Hope everybody having a great morning. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Y'all could be anywhere else, but y'all rocking with me, and we appreciate it. I am the host, the one and only Stock Sniper. This is the Freedom of Speech channel, and we ready to rock and roll. Let's go.
By one. India and Pakistan were on the verge of an all-out war. The State
Intelligence Committee up to last year, and you and Senator Warner are some of the most respected and knowledgeable people at that time and voices in the entire intelligence community, earning the trust of Democrats and Republicans alike, Senator and House members, and other countries. So with all your Intelligence Committee experience, and now as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, and all those years of experience, have you ever, specifically in the context of the intelligence community, heard the name Bill Pulte?
In the context of intelligence?
That's what I said.
No. No, I have
never heard his name. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Well,
never even heard his name. Given all your years of experience and your position now, never heard the name. For the record, Bill Pulte is a person Donald Trump has chosen for the acting director of national intelligence with no experience in the intelligence field, whose misuse, widely reported, of confidential information led to the prosecution of the president's political enemies, is now the person in charge of the nation's most closely guarded intelligence when he couldn't even conduct himself appropriately as the federal housing finance director. Now, Secretary, have you ever heard of the name Ira Zahari?
Who's that?
You've never heard the name Ira Zahari?
I mean, it doesn't ring a bell off the top.
In the context of security? Well, let me tell you. Mr. Zahari pleaded guilty for breaking into the Capitol on January 6th through a broken window, wielding a metal rod as a weapon. And Donald Trump appointed him to a team at the Pentagon focused on irregular warfare and, of all things, counterterrorism. That's ironic, given that he participated in one of the most significant incidents of domestic terror in our country's history. I think it's shameful, the people that are being appointed, and I think it's also shameful, some of the people that have been fired. Now, I want to move to Iran, because given your nuclear and intelligence background, which is extensive and appreciated and respected, I'm sure you're aware that Ukraine, the country at the time with the third largest nuclear arsenal, peacefully turned over their nuclear weapons in conjunction with the Budapest Memorandum, and in exchange for the U.S. commitment to defend Ukraine if it ever came under threat. The U.S. gave their word to Ukraine they would defend them. And I found this amazing. In your opening remarks, as you took us all over the world, and you mentioned 15 different incidents where you have interceded. 15, the top 15. Not once did you mention Ukraine when you were prioritizing the achievement that's there. Now let me go on.
Try to stay under
Let
5
me go
minutes.
on. Oh, you tried to stay. Yeah, please.
Well, I
It's
can
not
answer
funny.
that.
It's not funny, Secretary. Now,
What's not funny
in
is
Iran
that-
now.
Well, you don't.
In
this is-
Iran
you
now,
can't even
I
answer
reclaim
questions
my
here.
time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
You
He's
guys make these
interrupting me.
statements and no one
He
can
is
respond.
interrupting me. I'm doing it. I'm asking you to reclaim those seconds
They
back.
started early,
Early
this morning.
Now in Iran, what goes around comes around, Mr. Chairman. Now in Iran, the Trump administration issues a general license to Russia, providing billions in oil profits every month, several billion every month, fueling Putin's war machine. You didn't mention that in your opening remarks. And then this is a war of aggression of Russia attacking Ukraine, which we gave our agreement. And this is to a country that's assisting us in Iran, Ukraine, and helping a country with a war machine that are aiding Iran against us and putting our service members in jeopardy. Look, we have an opportunity as members just today to vote on the Ukraine Support Act. I hope we do it, and I am confident that we have bipartisan support. But I hope this administration will act on its own. They could do things themselves that you didn't mention, like rescind these general licenses, complete a bilateral drone agreement with Ukraine, provide direct military assistance that has access to Ukraine, implement comprehensive sanctions packages,
Representative
and condemn
time has expired.
the aggression.
Representative
Thank you,
Smith
Mr.
of New
Chairman,
Jersey
for taking
is
up
recognized.
my time and squandering it. That's not how a chairman should act.
Representative Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, if you need a moment to respond to it.
Well, I also didn't mention Cuba because I literally hand wrote what I was going to say to you guys, and I told you I was going to submit the written for the record. And I think everybody understands Cuba's a priority for me. Just on the Ukraine front, I'll address it now if it's okay with your time that I could do so. I think it's well documented that we've been very involved in trying to get the two sides to the table. We've invested a lot of time in it. Unfortunately, so to this point, neither side has been willing to make concessions, particularly on the Russian side, necessary in order to bring peace about. We remain ready to play any role we can in that context of bringing a peace about, because we think the war in Ukraine, devastating war, has no military solution. It can only be solved through a diplomatic route, and it's been unfruitful. I would characterize it as the ongoing challenges. That said, let's be clear, we are not, to be fair and to be frank, we are not impartial mediators in that war, okay? We don't provide weapons to Russia. We only provide weapons to Ukraine. We don't impose sanctions on Ukraine. We only impose sanctions on Russia. So we have clearly taken a side. We continue to sell weapons to Ukraine, by the way, through the Pearl program. unimpeded by what's happened in the Middle East or anywhere else. And look, we'd love to see that come to a negotiated settlement. As of right now, the prospects don't look great that either side is prepared to make the concessions necessary in order to reach an agreement. But we stand ready, and we've engaged and invested a tremendous amount of high-level time on that conflict over the last year. I think it's a source of frustration for the world. Hopefully this year will bring better news. I don't have any news for you on that front today, but we are ready. As I've expressed to both sides repeatedly, we're ready to step in and play whatever positive role we can to bring that devastating and escalating war to an end.
They come out swinging this morning, Chad, off the top. Appreciate y'all for joining. We got 35 people in the building. Thank y'all for joining. They coming out swinging, fresh off top on Marco Rubio.
And I know you will continue to push for that, but I know you did everything. The ball was in Xi Jinping's court, and he unfortunately erred on the side of continued incarceration of that great human rights defender. But thank you for that. Let me say on the Iran deal, I remember sitting right here and on the floor of the House talking about how egregiously flawed the deal was 10 years ago when the Ayatollah was able to get the language dealing with ballistic missiles out of it because he said it would be stupid, his words, and then they built ballistic missiles like never before. Them never having, Iran never having a nuclear weapon, let's not forget that the agreement was in effect until October of this past year. Other nations were still a part of it, and yet they were building a capacity to create nuclear weapons and to use them, and the MAD theory does not apply to them, as we all know. Unlike Russia, Soviet Union in the past, even China, they don't want to be destroyed. With the Iranians, there's a sense of martyrdom that I think is perverse, and so they are not guided by a mutual assured destruction theory that holds both sides in check. Let me just say, too, on the Nigeria, thank you for what you've done there with not just CPC, but the most recent taking out of some of the worst terrorists who are slaughtering Christians, and the numbers continue, but I know you're engaging very, very aggressively there. On the DRC-Rwanda conflict, thank you for sanctioning some of the top people who are committing atrocities, and that just happened a couple of days ago, yesterday, for sure. That shows that commitment there. And on even the Armenian Azerbaijan, I've been working on Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan and Armenia for 30 years. They often called Nagorno-Karabakh the frozen conflict because nothing would ever happen. You guys stepped in, and the president stepped in and got a peace treaty. I mean, I've met with Aliyev in Baku on 2 occasions. He was totally unwilling to admit to the human rights abuses that he was engaging in, especially as it relates to Nagorno-Karabakh and the Armenians. You've come up with a solution. Thank you for that. And anything you want to speak to on the DRC or Rwandan or any of these issues, appreciate everything you're doing for this country. There's a full plate of horrible things happening, and we're so grateful you're at the helm. Please.
Oh, well, I just on DRC Rwanda, I would say, just to elaborate on that a little further, as you know, we had an agreement signed and the compliance was not good in that regard. But to be fair, and I know that some other people disagree with this assessment, but we believe it's pretty accurate on the Rwandan side. And so we initiated some sanctions, targeted sanctions on Rwanda. They've come to the table. They've made some commitments. They are complying with the commitments, maybe not at the rate or speed that we'd like them to, but there's been some compliance on pulling back of troops. What we'll watch very closely, of course, is we don't want to see Rwandan troops change uniform into M23 uniforms and claim that they've pulled out. We got to watch that very carefully. And we also have to deal with the M23 issue there. But those are both DRC, Rwanda, and Sudan are 2 areas we remain very engaged in trying to find a solution to.
Representative's time has expired. Representative Castro, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for coming in today and for your testimony. I want to start with Iran. I'm hopeful that the President and the administration are able to reach an agreement that ends the war and also reopens the Strait of Hormuz. If there's a deal subject to congressional review under INARA, I'll approach it with a fair mind, and I hope that all of us will as well. I just ask that you keep the committee briefed on the details of that agreement, and I believe that it's in America's interest that this war, I really mean that. We are at war alongside Israel against Iran. Iran has struck Israeli nuclear facilities at Dimona, and American service members are deployed throughout the region, as you know. Congress needs to understand the full risks of the conflict, including the nuclear risks. On May 4th, I wrote to you with 29 colleagues asking for details about these risks and Israeli nuclear weapons. On June 1st, your Bureau of Legislative Affairs responded and said, quote, "We refer you to the government of Israel for your questions about Israel's capabilities." I have to say, Mr. Secretary, that's a very bizarre response. 30 of us wrote to you and to the State Department asking our government for an answer, an assessment about a foreign nation's nuclear capabilities. In your opening statement, you referred to India and Pakistan as nuclear nations. We've also spoken in different sessions, both in closed and open sessions, you know, as a U.S. Senator, former U.S. Senator, about the nuclear capabilities of other nations, Iran, China, Russia, France, the UK, both adversaries and allies. And so I wanted to ask you the question today, will you tell us, the Congress and the American people, whether Israel in fact possesses nuclear weapons?
You know that that's a question that they've never acknowledged to have a nuclear program. People can have, as you know, in open source and other reporting, suspicions about what they possess. If we're speaking frankly, I think most of the world assesses that they do, but they've never acknowledged that publicly, and as a feature of our foreign policy for a variety of reasons, we don't discuss it in that way either.
Well, I guess a few things. This is the first time, especially for an extended period, that we are at war with an ally, Israel, against Iran, and we have service members deployed. And we don't, if they in fact possess nuclear weapons, and you're right, in open source reporting that has come across, we don't know what their red lines are for using those nuclear weapons. And so I guess I'm shocked that our government wouldn't make an effort to know, to understand, and then to give our oversight body the information that we need to make decisions about the war as well.
That's a fair observation, and I would answer that if perhaps you make that request and you're open to it being answered in a different setting other than a public
Classified
letter.
setting? A classified setting?
Yes, and both classified and sensitive. And if we could, I think you would get a better response to your question if the context in which it was answered were framed differently than a public letter for a variety of reasons. If we're being mature and grown up here, I mean, foreign policy, and I know that you are, and you, from the tone of your question, it's clear that it's a serious question. These things require delicate balancing acts between different equities, but I think you can get probably a more fulsome answer if we were to be able to respond to that inquiry in a different context, if that makes sense.
Mr. Secretary, I'll certainly take you up on that, and I appreciate your answer. Thank you for that. I have another question on Lebanon. The president and you are working to end this war with Iran, and according to reporting at least, one of the main sticking points is Israel's continuing military campaign in Lebanon against Hezbollah, which the president has called on Israel to stop. The president confirmed last night, in fact, that he in fact told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop the war and support the president's negotiations for a peace agreement with Iran.
I'd love to answer that question. It's going to take more than the 42 seconds, and I know I've seen already that people get pretty pissed off here when their time gets eaten up. But if I can answer that question, maybe the next person will let me continue, because that's a really important question. So let me just start by saying this. Let me walk you through this. We had an agreement. Hezbollah reached out 2 weeks ago and basically said, about 10 days ago, and basically said, we will not launch missiles into Israeli territory if they stop attacking into Beirut. That was the agreement, I think 5 p.m. 2 Saturdays ago. At 6 p.m., they launched missiles. And then they came back and said, well, we made a mistake. We thought it started tomorrow, not Saturday. Then they went again and violated it again on Sunday.
But also Israel has been bombing and launching throughout. Is that correct?
Well, there's two separate things. Actually, Israel has not conducted massive operations in Beirut for some time. What you see them operating is in the south. And what they are, what we've always said, and it's part of the joint statement, we've always said is Israel has a right to act in its defense. So as an example.
Well, but so then why did the president have to tell Israel to stop
Time has
anything?
expired. Representative Wilson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you and recognize that we appreciate the U.S.-Israel alliance, and we appreciate very much the response that's being done against 1,100 missile attacks that have come out of Lebanon, as you've just identified correctly, and they need to know that, and how they don't know that, I don't know. But any attacks that are done by Israel are in response, not initiated. With that in mind, you are serving at a historic time with successive dictators on the run. Dictator Assad of Syria has fled to Moscow. Dictator Maduro of Venezuela is incarcerated in Manhattan. Dictator Khomeini of Iran has been eliminated, joining the 40,000 Iranians he murdered this year. As chairman myself of the Helsinki Commission, Commission for Security and Cooperation in Europe, you have achieved unprecedented unity in Latin America, supporting the liberation of Venezuela and soon Cuba. You have achieved historic unity across the Middle East of all countries, supporting American efforts, except for the Republic of Georgia, to oppose Iran and its nuclear capabilities. And in Europe, NATO and the EU are united as never before, promoting defense increases for peace through strength to indeed promote Ukraine victory over war criminal Putin. With that in mind, another region is the South Caucasus, which is critical of the opportunity for the Trump route that you've achieved with Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia and President Aliyev of Azerbaijan. What a great achievement that is. With that in mind, though, the pro-Iranian regime of and the Chinese Communist Party supported Georgian Dream government, which is illegitimate, threatens American access. There was a rigged election in Georgia. With that in mind, they're facilitating the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and evading sanctions to Tehran. What do you believe should be done to address the rapidly expanding radicalization promoted by the Georgian Dream government in the Republic of Georgia?
Let me, if I may, I want to answer the Georgia question.
You do
Can I
all the
steal
above.
30 seconds of your time to finish the answer to
all the
Representative
above.
Castro? So on Georgia, you're right. Everything you've just outlined is our pre-existing concern. Since that time, they have made some steps indicating to us that they want to improve their relations with the United States. We've outlined to them what that would take and what that would require. We've received some positive responses. And so our hope is that we can see a change of trajectory in the case of Georgia from where it is today. We obviously understand all the things you've just laid out as being pre-existing problems for us. They've asked us, what will it take to have a better relationship with the United States? We've responded, and hopefully we can build on that basis and perhaps change the trajectory, not just of our relationship with Georgia, but of their behavior. Is it okay if I just take 30 seconds of your time? I apologize. So on the strikes that you're referring to, here's what happens in the South. I'm just going to speak colloquially as best I can. The Israelis see Hezbollah moving around, maybe even launching a missile from the south, and they action it in defense. They go after it in the southern portion. And that's what we're seeing in many cases is these defensive strikes. What they're increasingly doing is taking more territory in the south to deny them launching space. Because understand, these rockets are being launched into northern villages and cities in Israel, and populations can't even return to their homes as a result of it. In the case of what happened the other day, the following was happening. We had indications, multiple indications, that Israel may be considering conducting anti-Hezbollah strikes inside of Beirut. And at that moment, we had reach out from the Lebanese authorities saying that Hezbollah had contacted them and said, if Israel doesn't strike Beirut, that they would stop launching missiles into Israeli territory. That's the message we got, and that's what the president pursued and said, okay, I had this outreach. If you won't do these strikes in Beirut, they'll stop launching against you in northern Israel. Unfortunately, within an hour or two of that conversation, they launched 2 waves of rockets from Hezbollah against Israel in Israeli territory. So it's an ongoing challenge. I think one of the reasons why we're engaged in these talks between Lebanon and Israel is understanding that Hezbollah is not just an enemy of Israel. Hezbollah is an enemy of Lebanon. They are an enemy of the Lebanese government. They have called for the overthrow of the Lebanese government. When Lebanon expelled the Iranian ambassador, he refused to leave. He said, I'm not leaving. You can't expel me. Hezbollah is protecting me. So Hezbollah is not just a challenge to Israel. It's a challenge to Lebanon, to the Lebanese state and the Lebanese people. And we are hopeful that we can create a paradigm in which Lebanon's government and Israel can work together to disarm Hezbollah and allow the people of Lebanon to reclaim its country. But it's complex. This has been going on since, since OJ had isotoners and those commercials. So.
And Mr. Secretary, you're correct. I was with President Aoun in Beirut last year, and that what you're doing is should address it. I do want to point out, give Syria a chance, and that's been your success, Tom Barrack, the president, giving Syria a chance. We need to delist Syria from the state sponsor of terrorism, and I urge that to be done.
Thank you for being so generous for Representative Castro's question. Representative Titus is recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I just want to talk about some of the conflicting comments that we've been hearing about the status of Iran's military. The president just made some comments on Fox News where he said Iran's military, we sort of left it alone because we think that their military is somewhat somewhat moderate. We've taken different forms of leadership out, but we've actually left their military alone. People would be surprised to hear that. Well, I'm very surprised to hear it because we've had Secretary Hegseth say repeatedly that Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You've said the Iranian Navy's at the bottom of the sea and they have no Air Force either. Well, which is it? You're the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. If you can't tell us if the military's decimated or not, is it at the bottom of the sea? Was it left alone? This is a major point I think Congress needs clarity on.
Okay, thank you. Fair question. Let me address both of them. The first is on the military. I think there's a difference between the military's hardware and capabilities and the individuals involved in the military. As you know, the Iranians suffered tremendous losses in personnel, and that includes top leadership of the IRGC and other elements of their government. What the president is alluding to is that there are certain individuals in the Iranian regime who have indicated both directly and indirectly a willingness to approach the future perhaps a little different. Not ideal. I'm not telling you, look, everybody talks about moderates in Iran. There are no moderates. There are radicals and super radicals, okay? That's been our view of it. But there are some of them that believe that they actually need to do a deal because their economy is in shambles. And so I think what the president is alluding to is that there are some individuals involved in the negotiations and in elements of their government, including some in elements of their military that are more open to a deal than other. As far as the Navy is concerned, yeah, they have no Navy. What they have remaining is a bunch of small crafts, I would call them Boston whalers with machine guns. And these things are harassing ships. And these are the ones that go after, in some cases, they drop mines off the back of them, or they try to harass shipping with swarms. They are unable to form swarms the way they once did. They are primarily now threatening shipping through the use of one-way attack drones. But their Navy, which you would consider a Navy with naval vessels that can actually conduct naval operations, is non-existent at this point.
So is the war still on or is the war off?
Well, Epic Fury has concluded. What you're seeing reports of, including last night, is the following. A ship will go through the route, particularly both the northern and southern route of Hormuz. Those ships will come under attack. The U.S. will respond to that attack by shooting down those drones that are trying to sink a commercial civilian vessel illegally and unlawfully. At that point, the Iranians will respond to that by targeting some facility in the region in retribution. On occasion, in order to protect our own forces, we don't just strike the drones, we strike the people who launch those drones. These are completely defensive in nature, and but they are happening in response to an Iranian action. If they don't shoot at those ships, we don't shoot. But we have to respond. You have a civilian commercial vessel transiting the straits, and they're being targeted by drones. And these drones are not like highly precise. They could hit any part of that ship, and they could create, including an ecological disaster.
Well, apparently some kind of military exists that's shooting these drones off. I mean, the military obviously isn't decimated.
Well,
they're attack these ships with these drones.
Yeah, they still retain a drone.
When you say what the president was alluding to, the president's not a person who's known for illusions. He just shouts it right out, whatever he's thinking. So I don't think he was alluding to anything, as you suggest.
Well, drones are, as you know, a challenge in multiple battlefields around the world. It's going to be a tremendous challenge for warfighting in the future because they're cheap.
Yeah, I know what drones are.
I know you know what they are, but I'm saying that they're cheap and they're easy.
Yes, I know, and we're using things that are very expensive to shoot them down.
And that needs to change. That said, yes, they still have the capability to, they can't launch as many as they used to, and they can't launch them in the swarms they used to launch them in, but they still retain that capability.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you a quick question about something that Ambassador Barrack said, changing the subject a little bit. He compared Israel to Hezbollah, for one thing. That was a pretty concerning comparison. But also he said Turkey should join the F-35 program. These comments are inconsistent with law and longstanding policy, and I'm just wondering what your position is as Secretary of State. Can Turkey get F-15s and F-35s, or not? What if we seem to be helping the bad guys and not the good guys?
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, Turkey actually was in the F-35 program. The reason why they can't get them is because they purchased the S-400 system from the Russians.
They still have those, and they're still under mandatory sanctions because of
so as you know, that's governed by statute.
Okay, or not?
Well, right now we don't have that choice because it's governed by statute, both provisions of the NDAA and the statute.
Out there saying that.
Well, Representative, time has expired. Representative Perry is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I would give you an opportunity to answer the ranking member, even though he didn't pose it as a question. But I, as an individual like me on the dais who have served in uniform, thank you for your actions regarding Iran and this administration's action. But if you want to answer it yes or no, you're welcome to. Who started the war between Iran and America 47 years ago?
Yeah, I don't, these yes or no things I don't like, but I could just tell you Iran has been at war against the United States since the minute the Islamic regime took over.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. And again, thank you on behalf and to honor the thousands and 10,000s of Americans who have been murdered or maimed by Iran. Thank you for honoring them. Just moving on to questions, did Pakistan's foreign minister personally deliver a message to you that Iran is prepared to demonstrate a nuclear weapon should the current escalation continue? That's been reported, and I just want to see if I can ferret that out.
I've not seen that reporting, and I'm not aware of any such message.
Okay, and if there were such a message, would that change anything in America's posture, or not only the message, but the action? Would that change anything regarding our goals regarding Iran?
The hypothetical question is, if Iran threatened that they're going to test a nuclear device if talks fail, I think it would confirm everything we believe about them anyways. And I think the president then would have to pursue, or at least have to consider various other options that are available to him in that context. But again, I've not heard that message relayed. I don't know the reporting you're referring to. You're talking about a press report?
Yeah, I am talking about a press report.
I would be surprised if that message had been relayed. I would be aware of it if it was.
I would think so. That's why I'm asking, so that's enough on that. I know that the president, look, he's an America First guy. He's concerned about every single American citizen, regardless of their party affiliation or their ideology and affordability. The president is concerned about those things. And I shudder to think what Iran would do if they could, armed with nuclear capability and ballistic missile capability, coupled with that, seeing what they're doing right now, extorting the world economy without those things. So with that in mind, it's been reported that the UAE is building a pipeline to the Gulf of Oman, which would bypass the Strait of Hormuz, essentially doubling their capacity, which would, of course, lower the price and the risk of global fuel transport or oil transport. Do you understand or do you recognize and know what the timeline for a proposed timeline for completion of that pipeline is?
Yeah, I'm aware of those efforts. They actually pre-exist the conflict in terms of a desire to do so. These things, I can't tell you specifically. I'm not a pipeline building expert, right, but I can tell you certainly it's going to take more than a week or a year. I mean, these are complex. I think the broader point, which your question touches on, is I do think you're going to see a reshifting of where the world gets its energy from in the aftermath of this conflict. You're already beginning to see some of it now. I think you're going to see the United States be a bigger energy provider to the Indo-Pacific. We have the capability to do so, but it's going to take some time to build that capability. So I think you're going to see more of that. And I think you're going to see the establishment of more of these alternative routes as a result of this. Remember, only about 20% of global oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz, but it is about 80 to 85% of the oil that goes to the Indo-Pacific. So in those particular countries, I think you're going to most definitely see them buying more from other places, including the United States.
And that's going to lower the cost for everybody, which is great. Secretary, just moving on, you're of Cuban descent, of Colombian descent. Can you describe, and Cuba has been a sore...
Are you really Colombian? I didn't know that.
Yes,
oh, wow.
Indeed. But Cuba has been sowing the seeds of discord in our hemisphere, inviting China, Russia, North Korea, all manner of communist, oligarch, bad actors into the hemisphere. If you can describe, generally speaking, what the policy where we're headed with Cuba as the United States of America. Where are we headed, and what do you envision being success, and how do we measure that?
In 56 seconds, I will tell you what we want for the people of Cuba is to be able to live in a normal country.
You're here.
I want them to live in a country that looks like the Dominican Republic, like Jamaica, like the Bahamas, like any of these other places where people can own their own business, people can vote for their own leaders. By the way, that's not my desire. That's the policy of the United States. That's enshrined in statute. Here's the problem. And we're willing to do this through a diplomatic means. The problem we have is that country's not controlled by a government. That country's controlled by a military conglomerate that basically controls 70% of the nation's GDP, and none of the profits of that conglomerate goes into the public treasury. None of that money goes to build bridges and roads or to reinvest into their energy infrastructure. All of it goes to build more hotels for tourists that aren't coming and to line the pockets of the people that are involved. So that has to change. My question, I think we all can envision what we want Cuba to look like, and it doesn't have to happen from overnight. Okay, we understand they're not going to go from being what they are now to turning into Belgium or Switzerland in one day to the next. It takes time in these processes. I just don't believe, frankly, at this point, given everything we've seen, that the people in charge of that conglomerate and of that government are capable of making these reforms, at least not yet. Their mindset isn't there. Their incentives aren't there. They have spent, 60-something years waiting us out and holding on, and I think they can still get away with it, and they can't, and they won't be able to.
Time has expired. Representative Liu is recognized.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio, for being here today. You have been at multiple meetings with President Trump. In a moment, I'm going to show you a video of one of these meetings. It is from last December. It's a cabinet meeting. I'm going to ask you to focus on President Trump, and you will see that he is sleeping while you're talking.
Oh, my God.
Please show the video.
Products they make and what American farmers grow and produce has a fair shot to be sold around the world. On issue after issue, that's been the case. You talk about foreign aid reforms. This is not our money. This is taxpayer money.
Secretary Rubio, have you been at more than one meeting where President Trump has fallen asleep?
That's false. That's false. I've never seen him fall asleep. On the contrary, the guy doesn't sleep, which is a big problem because he calls me at 2 in the morning. He calls me at 5 in the morning. I like to sleep a little bit, maybe not 12 hours, but at least 6. So he works. The other day he was at the Oval Office until 12:30 p.m. 12:30 a.m. I don't know what you're talking about.
Secretary Rubio, I'm going to show you in a moment a video that shows you just lied to Congress.
Oh, okay.
So this is a video of a cabinet meeting literally from last month where Donald Trump is sleeping while you're talking.
Let's see.
Please show this video.
Coalition of countries that line up behind the peace deal, behind the border peace, and it's still every day is a challenge, but it's been driven personally by the president. It's the reason why we're involved in this whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's not our war. It's not the president's war. This war started, it never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it.
You are literally talking about issues of war and peace, and Donald Trump is sleeping right next to you.
No, he's not.
If Donald Trump cannot stay awake at these important meetings where the cameras are rolling, imagine what he's like when the cameras are not there. So I'm going to ask you, have you been at classified meetings where Donald Trump has fallen asleep or had trouble staying awake?
I've never been at any meeting where, and the things you're showing me now, he was not falling asleep. And I think it's
you're lying
that I'm
again.
The Foreign Affairs
You're lying
Committee of the United States House of Representatives
to
asking
Congress.
questions about sleep.
You're lying to Congress, Secretary Rubio. So I'm going to show you another video in a moment. The president's inability to stay awake on the job has caused other countries to perceive him differently. They mock him. They see he is weak and he is feeble. This is a video of a French news channel talking about Donald Trump falling asleep at a Memorial Day ceremony. Please show this video.
Well, Mark, a video that appears to show Donald Trump falling asleep at a Memorial Day ceremony this Monday has been circulating heavily online. And internet users have a lot to say about it. It's also reignited rumors about the state of the US president's health. Now, in the video, social media users say that Trump is fighting sleep whilst he listens to the speech given by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and that his eyes appear to be closed for a large portion of the ceremony. Now, we need to remember here that this is a ceremony to honor and remember those US military personnel who have died while serving in the armed forces. And the idea that Trump was asleep at a somber ceremony like this, well, that has triggered outrage online.
Donald Trump's inability to stay awake on the job shows that there's something very wrong with his health or cognitive abilities. And in fact, on a number of occasions, Donald Trump will contradict himself in literally the same meeting or interview. In this video I'm about to show, it shows that Donald Trump says the Iranian military is both destroyed and not destroyed at the same time, something that Dina Titus alluded to. Please show this video.
In terms of leadership, we've actually left their military alone. People would be surprised to hear that, because mistakes have been made in wars where you wipe out everybody and then you have a country that's, for 40 years can never rebuild. You look at what happened with Iraq. We did so. Iran is in a very bad position. They have no military. All they have is good talk, and they have a fake press.
So, Secretary Rubio, instead of holding North Korean-style cabinet meetings where everyone goes around the room kissing Donald Trump's ass, I'm going to ask you to come clean with the American people and the White House as well. There's something wrong with Donald Trump's health or cognitive abilities. There's a reason he keeps going to the hospital and they keep giving him cognitive tests. We have not seen the president in 8 days. The American people deserve the truth. I yield back.
I don't even know how to respond to that, other than to tell you that it's absurd and ridiculous. And I can't believe we're in a Foreign Affairs Committee meeting in front of the House, an important time in American foreign policy.
Just keep lying, Secretary Rubio. Just keep lying.
Supposedly someone who thinks he's a medical expert when he's not. The truth of the matter is we had a cognitively impaired president in office a few years ago. That's a cognitively impaired president, but I don't like to talk about that because it weakens America. This president we have, this is a guy that literally doesn't sleep. He works day and night, long hours, every single day. I don't know if you haven't seen him in 8 days. I saw him yesterday. I didn't see him today, but yesterday because I was in Congress the day before. I talked to him at all hours of the day and night. He works inhumane hours. Okay, I've been on foreign trips with the president that he doesn't sleep in the whole flight. And everyone else is sleeping on the plane, and he's, wandering the hallways looking for someone to wake up and talk to that people are. So I don't know what you're referring to, but he has an incredible amount of energy. I'm just telling you, you may not like his policies. You may not like his policies, you may not like the decisions he's made, but I assure you, this is not a president that sleeps or is cognitively impaired in any way, shape, or form, and in fact is incredibly active, much more so in many cases than much younger people that are around him. Those are facts. I see it every day. You're not going to agree because you have another narrative that you want to push, but those are the facts.
I just showed you 3 videos of him sleeping. Secretary
Representative
Rubio.
Issa is recognized.
Thanks for waking me up, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, if you'd gone to sleep during those videos, I would not have blamed you. I, too, have received those calls at all hours of the day and night. I'm, like you, aware that the president works harder than any other person here in Washington. But moving along, a number of things have been said that I find just incredible. First of all, this armed forces over decades is trying to accomplish.
Contradiction?
Is there any light between those two efforts?
They're aligned. What we would like to see is a Lebanese armed forces with the strength and the capability to disarm Hezbollah and reclaim the entirety of the country on behalf. The country should only have one armed forces. It shouldn't have an armed political party, which is what Hezbollah is, and then the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces. So and the Lebanese want that too. And that's what we work very closely with them on, and that's what our engagement with the Lebanese is about.
And, Mr. Secretary, just for the record, in one of the last times I was in Israel, I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu if we should cut off aid, as some have said, to Lebanon. He said, to Lebanese armed forces, he said, no, give them more. Give them what they need to take back their country. So I do believe that we couldn't be more aligned with the efforts of Israel and the present government of Lebanon. Moving along, you did a great job of going around the world and outlining the mess that was left to you as you pick each of them up. One that you didn't touch on that I'm concerned about is actually a democratic one, which is the democracy of South Korea has taken a strong bent to the left, opening up more avenues toward China and, in fact, beginning to oppress many of our companies, including Meta, Coupon, and others. Can you tell us what can be done and what this committee should do with countries who, through democratic means, are beginning to become anti-U.S.?
Right. So there are a couple points I would make. The first is that, and this is the unique aspect of dealing with democracies, and we see it in our hemisphere quite often. Sometimes in a democratic country, they will elect leaders that are friendlier to U.S. national interests, such as what we have now in Japan. And sometimes they will elect leaders that have a different perspective. We respect the sovereign choice of the people of that country. That's a legitimate election. That's who they chose. In those instances in which a democracy and their elected leaders are taking positions that run contrary to the national interests of the United States, it doesn't mean we want to overthrow the government or get rid of the government because it's a democratic government. It simply means we have to engage them in the fact that they are doing things that are irritants to our national interests. You point to some of our companies. Our companies aren't just facing challenges and, I would say targeting in South Korea. They're facing it throughout Europe. And the European Union, as an example, is targeting our technology companies and conducting what we believe is unfair. So I think this becomes a feature of our engagement with South Korea, even as we have things that we're strategically aligned on. These are areas we've expressed and I think have, frankly, impacted our ability to conclude a trade agreement with them because of some of their behavior towards American companies.
Iran obviously was going to dominate a part of today, and I'd like to close my questioning with a question for you. In 1979, if my math is correct, you were 8 years old when they took our embassy and then lied about it, claimed it was students doing it. That's 47 years ago, has been said many times. Is it fair to say that President Trump, no matter what the people on the other side of the aisle want to say, is not in the 60th or 70th day of action, but in fact in the 47th year of an ongoing war with Iran that has spread to Yemen, to Lebanon, and even to South and Central America?
I think I would start, well, absolutely, first of all, with Hezbollah. Hezbollah is an agent of the Iranians, and they've carried out terrorist operations around the world, including the recent anniversary of what they did in Argentina, the Jewish Center. But let's not forget those IEDs that were used to maim and kill our troops in Iraq were all innovated by Soleimani and the IRGC, which strongly supported that. Let's not forget that we have these Iranian proxy militias operating inside of Iraq that as recently as 2 months ago kidnapped an American journalist. And let's not forget that there are people that are both charged and convicted in the United States for participating in Iranian assassination plots against the president and against other former and current government leaders. So we've been facing this from Iran for 47 years in a variety of ways, some more open than others.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the Wall Street Journal article entitled "South Korea Takes a Hard Left Turn Against America" be placed in the record.
So ordered.
Thank you. I yield back.
Without objection. Representative Jacobs is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, good to see you. I'd like to talk about the war in Iran. Yesterday, in your Senate testimony, you told Senator Booker that the war in Iran is over. This is news to me. It's also news to my 2,500 constituents, Marines, San Diego Marines in the Middle East off the coast of Iran, the other of my constituents who are deployed there, and the thousands more of my constituents who have 48-hour deployment notices whose families are still very concerned. But okay, I will take you at your word. If the war is over, I have a simple question. Who won?
First of all, Epic Fury is over, which is what you would consider the war. That operation is
So you
concluded.
agree it's a war, then?
No, those are hostilities. They called it a war.
Okay.
I'm just responding to the Senator
Mr.
Booker's
Secretary,
question.
you can change the name of the operation. It doesn't change the fact that the strait is still closed and my service members and all of our service members are still in harm's way. The war is not over. But I'm agreeing with you. Okay, fine. We're taking you at your word. The war is over. Who won?
Well, first of all, you're not taking me at my word. It's a fact. We're no longer conducting sustained strikes inside of Iran to degrade their military because Epic Fury is over. The second point is on the question of who won, I can tell you this. We defined victory as destroying their defense industrial base, significantly reducing the number of missile launchers that they possess, significantly reducing their stockpile of drones. And we achieved all of those in addition to destroying what they had left of an air force and wiping out their entire conventional navy. Those are all gone. So I consider that victory, and we did too, and that was the purpose of Epic Fury.
Okay, well, good. Based on the metrics that you just said, okay, there's actually, our intelligence community has said that Iran is reconstituting its military industrial base faster than we had predicted, and analysts assess it still holds roughly 70% of its missile stockpile and 70% of its mobile launchers. The Strait of Hormuz was open before the war. It is now closed. We have lost 14 brave American service members. Over 400 are injured. And the Iranian regime remains largely intact, but now with a more hardline leader who has more incentive to try and get a nuclear weapon. So I guess I have to ask you again, Mr. Secretary, does this actually look like winning or losing to you?
Well, first of all, I don't know what intelligence assessments you're referring to. We wouldn't discuss intelligence assessments if they were real.
These have been publicly reported.
Well, they're publicly reported. Someone committed a crime and, by the way, is also lying. And this happens all the time. People manipulate intelligence and analysis for purposes of furthering a narrative. On your point about the regime is actually deeply fractured, which is why it takes 7 to 10 days to get an answer from them for anything. Meanwhile, they
Fractured, but still intact.
Well, intact in the sense they can't even reach agreements that they can get back to us. So I don't know how intact that is. What they have is people that are afraid to go into the streets. Their repressive operations have held people back, in addition to the fact they've cut off the internet. But this is a country right now in this regime that is facing hyperinflation, a completely devalued currency, hundreds of billions of dollars in damage to their military infrastructure, and frankly, they all of the pre-existing problems that Iran had in their economy, which is why people were protesting, are worse, not better.
Sure,
and
but
they have to deal with that too.
Mr. Secretary, so you're saying we're winning because the Iranian economy has inflation, it's cost them millions of dollars a day in lost revenue, and because it's going to cost them billions of dollars to rebuild. Well, we are having inflation. It's already cost us an estimated $100 billion. Gas prices are up with no end in sight. The average family is paying an extra $450 on gas and could pay an extra $2,000 by the end of the year. The American people are not stupid, Mr. Secretary. We all know that this war is not over. Just last night, the U.S. and Iran exchanged fire again, this time over Karg Island. We still have not reached a deal, despite the president's promise that a deal is right around the corner. The president even said today the blockade could last until Labor Day. It's now day 97 of the war that the president said he wanted to end quickly. So I have one last question for you. Mr. Secretary, who won the 2020 presidential election?
I'm not here to answer about 2020. This is a foreign affairs committee.
Okay, great. You can't answer the question, even though we all know that President Biden won.
I don't answer the question because the Secretary of State, I do not participate in domestic political issues.
This is not about domestic political issues.
Certainly
This is about our democracy.
You're asking me to opine, just like I don't do campaign rallies.
It seems like
I don't do because as Secretary of State, we're not supposed to. That's been the long tradition of the department, and you should know that if you've been on this committee for any period of time.
Mr. Secretary, it seems like you have an issue admitting facts. You can't say that the president lost the 2020 election, just like you won't admit President Trump is losing this reckless war of choice, and just like you couldn't admit that the shoes the president bought you were too big. You clearly don't know what winning means, and not because the facts are unclear to you, it's because telling the truth would cost you your job, and the American people are entitled to a Secretary of State who tells them the truth even when the president doesn't want to hear it, and my constituents, our service members, deserve better. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I don't know what shoes she's talking about. What is she talking about?
Representative Burchett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'd like to answer any of that.
Yeah, I don't know about the shoes. I mean, he gave me some Florsheim shoes. They're actually pretty good. They fit fine. I don't know what she's talking about, and maybe that's what she's referring to.
Your shoes look very nice today, Mr. Secretary.
Well, how can you see them? They're way down here. We're talking about shoes. Are you guys kidding me? I mean, is this the Foreign Affairs Committee, or is this like a circus? What is this?
Watching you, bro.
I think it's a circus, but I appreciate you being here, Mr. Secretary. The United States is NATO's largest financial contributor. Why does NATO consistently ignore our call to share more of the defense burden in Europe? And is it our national interest to continue participating in NATO?
Well, I can give you the why, okay? And the why is pretty, and is the following. Especially in Western Europe, for the better part of 20 or 30 years, they have not had to spend on defense because the U.S. security shield has allowed them to instead spend their money on building up a very vast and robust social safety network. In my time as a senator and before that as a state representative, you would hear often from constituents about how come they have this and that in Europe and we don't have it here. Well, one of the reasons why is because these very rich countries were spending their money on social programs instead of defense because we were covering their defense. That paradigm has to shift. It has to shift for two reasons. The first is these are very wealthy countries that should have the ability to spend more to build up their defenses and need to. And this is not unique to President Trump. Multiple American presidents in both parties have complained about NATO burden sharing. This is just the first president that actually is doing something about it. The second point is the United States has global obligations. Just as I can leave a meeting with Europeans that want to talk about NATO, and the next meeting will be with someone from the Indo-Pacific that would like to see a greater U.S. military presence in the Indo-Pacific. And then you can talk to Gulf partners that want to make sure we're still committed to defending and being involved there. And then you can go to Africa and talk to countries that want to see our cooperation on counterterrorism. And then you can go to the Western Hemisphere where they want us to do more with them as well and pay more attention. So the U.S. has global obligations, and while we have vast resources, we do not have unlimited resources. We have to allocate them, and that will include constantly re-examining what our force posture looks like in Europe in comparison to other theaters and potential contingencies around the world.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I also wanted to thank you in the White House for supporting the bill that I've been pushing to defund the Taliban. You're very kind to me to meet with me, and I appreciate that very much, and the President's support as well. As you know, we're the UN's largest financial contributor, but it consistently pushes liberal policies like abortion and gender ideology in spite of our opposition. And every time there's a new council or whatever, and it's always our enemies that seem to be on there. Why is the U.S. still a member of the United Nations?
Of the United Nations?
Yes, sir.
Well, twofold, I would say. The first is the United Nations, of course, is a very frustrating thing for us, primarily because it's been unable to intervene or play a constructive role in most of the major crises around the world. It's lost its purpose, it's lost its mission. I think our UN mission is doing a very good job of driving substantial reforms at the UN and using our fees as leverage to achieve those reforms. Last year, actually, we had some pretty substantial successes, some real reductions in the size, in the bloated budget of the UN. And by the way, this is not just a U.S. position. Multiple countries agree with us that the UN had grown too large and it lost its core mission. On the other hand, there have been instances, and we try to use the UN where possible as a viable forum in which to solve problems. It was helpful as a forum in the Security Council, for example, in standing up the new mission in Haiti, in which the U.S. contribution is dramatically reduced, and partner nations around the world, because of the UN approval, are now able to step forward and provide not just money, but actual troops for the gang suppression force. Likewise, we have 130 some odd co-sponsors of a resolution, the largest number of co-sponsors ever for a resolution in the Security Council condemning what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz and authorizing countries to potentially do something about it. Unfortunately, it's facing a veto threat from China and Russia, so no vote has been scheduled on that yet. So there are organizations in the UN that we've partnered with. We've been able to partner with them on making contributions to humanitarian relief around the world. And we actually struck a pretty good deal with them in which we can ensure that that money is going to be spent in a way that furthers our national interest, not go to fund the NGO industrial complex, but also provide aid, critical aid to areas that badly need it. So there's been some utility with some of it, but the UN is in need of continued dramatic reform, and we intend to continue to use our fees that that they claim we owe as leverage for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One last thing. Is there any mutual, anything UN and NATO?
What's up, Chad? I think we're going to switch it over here. Scott Bessent.
30 years, just like in shipbuilding, critical minerals is one of the key industries that we're focused on.
Well, my hope would be that I can work with you to give more legal certainty to that very important project, Project Volt, you're working on, so that after the Trump administration leaves, which will just be in a couple of years, there can be a legacy of enduring law and operations so that we've addressed this challenge related to our critical minerals vulnerability. Might I work with you on that effort?
We look forward to working with you, Senator, and it is a priority for this administration and for Treasury and indeed for myself.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Senator Daines.
They got action at the House and the Senate today, Chad.
Secretary Bessent, it's good to have you here this morning.
Good to see you, Senator.
Grateful for all you are doing. A steady hand of wisdom there in the West Wing as you are working and solving some of our difficult challenges we face as a nation. So thanks for your service and appreciate you being here today. And I want to start by emphasizing how pleased I was when I saw the IRS's settlement offer for taxpayers involved with conservation easement tax disputes. For years, I've been sounding the alarm here on Capitol Hill on the abusive, syndicated conservation easements that falsely were claiming a charitable donation solely to turn a profit. And I'm an avid outdoorsman, guy from Montana, protecting our farmers and ranchers and championing conservation is one of my biggest priorities as I represent the state of Montana here the past 13 years. I know this is a shared priority for you in this administration, which is why I commend you for your help in implementing and enforcing this settlement. So it's a thank you.
Good. Thank you.
I also want to thank you for your hard work as we worked together over much of the last year on the Working Family Tax Cuts Act that was passed and signed into law. We're seeing some great results in Montana. In fact, Montana has received an average nearly $3,600 tax cut on their tax return this year. and about 105,000 Montana small businesses will benefit from permanent tax relief through that 20% pass-through deduction. And we know the pass-through side of the equation actually supports more jobs than the C-Corp side. So we did something here that's going to be helpful to create more jobs and, importantly, job growth and income growth here for so many American people.
And Senator, I have very clear recollection of you in the cabinet room expressing to myself, White House staff, the president, the need for permanence. So I think that will be one of your great lasting achievements once you retire.
Well, Secretary Bessent, thank you. And I know we both knew that permanence was an important part of the equation to remove the uncertainty that is oftentimes found in the tax code with expiring tax provisions. And there's enough uncertainty on Capitol Hill, sadly, that happens because of whether it's overreach in regulations or uncertain tax policy. But to take that off the table, I think was one of the great achievements that we faced. But thank you for your kind words. And I do think that we're going to see the benefits of this bill for many years to come. On Capitol Hill, anytime we pass something that's 800 pages plus in length, usually the more you dig into something, the worse it gets, oftentimes with big pork barrel spending bills. In this case, the more you dig into that working family tax cut bill, the better it gets.
Sir, the statistics are unbelievable. We saw at the IRS that 61 million filers, they filed for at least one of the signature policies, and we are seeing an industrial renaissance because of the immediate expensing for equipment, factories, and farm structures.
Well, it's music to our ears. It's what we predicted would happen. You put that kind of incentive structure in place. And I also believe, as we think about our China strategy, having that 100% expensing in the R&D investment to incentivize innovation will be another lasting legacy from what we accomplished together over the course of last year. I'd like just to ask you an open-ended question around how passing that largest tax cut, or said another way, preventing the largest tax increase in American history, why by making it permanent is that making the American taxpayer better off?
Sir, I believe that as you said, giving great certainty, whether it's to households, small business, or large business, that provides for them to create capital stock, capital spending, and increase productivity. And increased productivity is what leads to higher standards of living across the country.
Last question I have is on digital assets. Digital assets have moved from the margins now more to the mainstream. It's been
country. Secret Service provides service for that. And just about every one of these major events, even though DHS has the overall view of it, when you start taking Freedom 250, you start taking the FIFA games, you look at what's going on in the Olympics, the SEER rating, that is the rating of seriousness of protection, needs to be there. That's all ran by Secret Service. Now, we partner with them, but they are stretched thin. And we're going to have to plus their budget up significantly to be able to allow them to meet that threat coming towards us.
Given 30 seconds, regarding the task force that was set up about trying to find more greater means for efficiency with FEMA, as someone who's from Oklahoma, who readily knows how Oklahoma is often impacted by weather events, you got about 10, 15 seconds here. Anything you can tell us about the progress of that task force?
Yeah, we're going to have to restructure the way FEMA operates and push it closer to the states. The dollars that get to the states, they can do it cheaper and more efficient and faster than FEMA could ever do. FEMA was never designed to be the first in and last out. They were there to support the state and the local community on their bad day.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Ramirez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it. Secretary Mullen, you have been now in office for 71 days.
Uh-oh, here we go, Chad.
And you've been in this new role in 71 days of your watch. And I'll be honest with you, my office is getting more of the same. As you can see in the posters, I'm not going to go into details here because I want to really focus on questions with you. So my questions are going to be yes or no because I want to be able to go through a list of them. First one, Secretary, As a former member of the House and Senate, are you clear that members of Congress have statutory oversight authority over federally funded detention facilities? Yes or no?
I do with proper notice.
Yes.
When we're in a
The answer is yes.
shutdown,
I'm
it
gonna
takes
move
a
on
little
to the
bit more
next one. I'm
time, and
sorry.
all of us shut down
I'm
right
reclaiming
now.
my time. I want to go to the second question here. Yes or no? Given that Senator Andy Kim was acting within his statutory oversight authority at Delaney Hall, would you retract your comments that a senator probably shouldn't have been there? Yes or no? Would you retract them?
Andy Kim and I have visited multiple
Yes
times.
or
There is
no,
no yes or no on
Secretary?
that. If you don't, I can sit
I'd
right
like
here
to
and not
reclaim
answer
my
any of your
time.
questions if it's going to be
Chairman,
yes or
I'm
no,
reclaiming my
because there's a
time again.
backstory
Thank you.
behind that Andy
Reclaiming
Kim
my
and I
time.
talked multiple times, and we let him into the
Chairman?
center that day.
Thank you.
These
I want to
yes
go
or
on
no
to the next
questions,
one.
Chairman.
Chairman,
You can't.
Chairman,
These aren't yes.
I am the member.
Suspend. I'm glad.
I agree.
Somebody
We need to
elected
stop.
you.
We need to stop. We need to stop the clock.
I said suspend. I said suspend. Okay. Again, the members are entitled to ask questions. The witness is entitled to answer them. He is here voluntarily. The members are entitled to ask their question. They cannot limit his answer. If they say yes or no, and it's not a yes or no question, they want to
Chairman, if he's
reclaim their
unwilling to
time.
answer, we're reclaiming and we're moving on.
Yeah, if
correct?
that's
the
fine.
rule?
You can reclaim your time. That's fine. But do not, you get to ask the question. The witness gets to answer it. You do not get
Chairman,
to tell
when I
him
reclaim
how to
it, does he
answer.
stop speaking?
It's still suspended. Okay, but this is for everyone, this is for everyone, not just you. Again, we can add, because you did add, I think 10 more seconds back onto the clock.
It's more like 20.
10 more seconds back onto the clock.
She has an attitude for real. But, like we was watching last night, Chad, there's a lot going on with these ICE agents. If you was on the live last night, we seen a lot of horrific stuff, how they was treating them people last night.
Well, we're going back to another question.
Let's get it.
Let me
Let's
know when we're
get
ready.
everything set, and then I will let everything start again. 346, please.
So, Secretary, are you familiar with the ICE National Detention Standard, Standard 4, Food Service, that establishes that food in ICE detention must be nutritious and hygienic? Are you familiar with the standard? That's a pretty easy yes or no.
Hey, what's up,
Are you
18
familiar with the
Matilda?
standard? Thank you. So, given ICE's standards and reports of decaying food confirmed by congressional oversight, would you retract your comments dismissing detainees' concerns about rotten food as a desire for ethnic food? Would you retract those comments?
I didn't say rotten food. I said they wanted ethnic correct food, and I said this isn't a Holiday Inn. We're not providing that. But
So
we
you're
did
not
release a menu,
retracting-
and if you saw time, if you look time to look at the
So
menu,
you're not
you can see it's
retracting
pretty
your
good
comments?
food.
Okay. So let me just make sure I clarify. These questions were important because I know it shows this. You've been in Congress before, you've been in the House and Senate. You understand the separation of powers. You know Congress's role. You understand that there are rules and standards that you're required to follow. You've been saying this in the last 45 minutes we've been here. And still, you're disregarding what we know, which is that you're doing the same thing that your president and Miller want you to do, which is spew this garbage that makes immigrants criminals and that creates the standards and conditions for even children in detention to be living in inhumane conditions. You know what I call that? I call that being a tool. And let me tell you the impact of these actions. Kevin Gonzalez, my 18-year-old US citizen constituent with stage 4 colon cancer. He wanted to see his parents one last time, Secretary. But you rejected his parents' visa to come say goodbye to their son. In desperation, they came the only way that they knew how. They tried to cross the border.
Wow.
And when they tried to cross the border, they were detained by CBP in Arizona. They weren't just released so they can go back to Mexico. They sat in that detention center for 1 whole month. My office, the Mexican consulate, and their legal team, they worked tirelessly to ensure that the Gonzalez family could be reunited because they knew that Kevin just had weeks to go, that he could die at any time. He was diagnosed in January. Kevin, I want to show you the video. This is when he finally got to see his mother and father. Kevin went to Mexico. hear that cry from that mother. What you're not seeing is the father is wrapped around his son's feet, crying hysterically after a month in detention. Secretary, Kevin died less than 24 hours after that engagement. So I want to ask for every parent in this room, including Secretary Mullen, and including my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, wouldn't you go at any length to be able to see your dying child one last time? You know, rejecting visas to Kevin's family, that didn't protect our communities. Family separation, that doesn't make any community safer. So who then ends up benefiting from this? I'm gonna tell you who benefits. For-profit prison corporations. They profit from cruelty and point. And you now are operating as a secretary, inflicting cruelty and pain. And I have to say this, for Kevin, for Virginia, his grandmother, who's my constituent, we will not forget the terror of ICE. And we will not forget what DHS continues to do, even under your watch. We know that a better world is possible. We need something new, and that means, I will say it loudly so that you could go ahead and quote it if you need to. We need to abolish ICE, and we need to dismantle DHS. And like I told your predecessor, Secretary, I wouldn't get comfortable, because you have to be held accountable. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady. That part right there, that story, that's a bad, that's a horrible story. But the way I look at that, chat, let's say if I was in jail, I committed a crime, and I went to jail, and my son was on his dying bed. They're not going to let me out of prison to see my son on his dying bed, but they'll let me out of prison to go to the funeral. But they're not going to give. If I commit a crime and I break the law and I go to jail, I can't expect them to let me out of jail to go see my dying son. That's a privilege. When you break the law and you go to jail, which ICE and breaking the law and crossing the border, in my opinion, that's similar. When you break the law and cross the border, and then they put you in one of those ICE facilities, that's AKA jail. So it's a harsh topic, but we got to look at it like this. If I break the law and I go to jail and one of my kids are in a hospital, they're not going to let me out of prison to go see my son that's dying. Now, I might get the privilege, they might grant me the privilege to go to the funeral, but they're not obligated to give me, I don't have a right to go to the funeral. That is like, if they let me go to the funeral, grant me, if I do everything right in prison, and they grant me the right to go see my son if he died, then that's not a given. That's just what they do to some people. But I can't expect them to let me go see my son and I committed a crime. I should have thought about that before I committed the crime. They say, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. So, and we got to think about some of these things. I know a lot of us know a lot of people that go to prison and their daddy died, their mama died, their kid died. Sometimes they let them go, sometimes they don't. So in my opinion, this is the same scenario, and then the family, the son, if I remember correctly, the son was already over here illegal, what I'm thinking, and the parents was in their country, and they came back illegally to go see him, in the hospital. Well, you broke the law again. So that's a touchy situation. That's a touchy topic, but we got to think logically. In America, if I go to jail and my son, my dad, my mom is on a dying bed, 8 times out of 10, they're not going to let me out of jail to go see my dying mom. Now, they might grant me a furlough to go to the funeral. They just might, depending on how I act and my status in prison. So this is the same scenario. Tim, in most countries, if you overstay your visa, you can be kicked out of the country. Yeah. So this right here, we're gonna let him respond. We're gonna let the guy respond. Well, the guy's gonna respond, which I think I'm real interested in what he's going to say. So let's continue. People got to be accountable for their actions. That's right, Tim.
Yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Strong.
Are they not going to let him say
Thank you,
nothing?
Mr. Chairman Garbarino and Ranking Member Thompson, Secretary Mullen. Thank you for being here today and for the work you and your team are doing to keep our nation safe. I represent Alabama's 5th Congressional District, home in Huntsville, Alabama, and Redstone Arsenal. You may know that North Alabama offers a unique combination of mission capability, affordability, workforce talent, and room for future growth. We're proud to host HSI's XCOM South for the national.
I think it's kind of good that he didn't respond, chat, because that is a touchy subject. But we got to think logically, A lot of times these people, they be spinning stuff. They be spinning it. But all you got to do is just think about it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us know people that then broke the law. You know what I'm saying? And their dad died, like I said earlier. And they don't let them come. It's a privilege if they let you go. So we got to think logical when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Academy for Advanced Training and Leadership, along with numerous companies, organizations, and other federal components that support DHS mission every day. I'd like to welcome the opportunity to host you in Huntsville. I know that you're well aware of us, but it'd be a great trip if we could have you there to see all of our different things that we have to offer in North Alabama. Like many of my colleagues, the threat posed by UAS is at the top of our mind, especially as we prepare to host major international events such as FIFA World Cup and the Olympic Games. Redstone Arsenal is home to the National Counter UAS Training Center, which trains federal, state, and local personnel to detect, track, and respond to drone threats. The center is playing a critical role in preparing law enforcement partners ahead of the World Cup and other major national events. Secretary Mullen, can you discuss the role the National Counter UAS Training Center is playing in DHS's broader counter-drone strategy? And do you believe we are making the investment and building the partnerships necessary to stay ahead of emerging UAS threats?
Thank you for the question. I'm actually going to be there at the facility on Friday with Katie Britt. I understand you can't make it because you got duties here in Congress. I think we were trying to make Huntsville too. We're going to reschedule it to where you can be there because Alabama is leading in this area. We really appreciate the leadership. As I said, counter US is I think the largest concern that I have on a daily basis, and the fact that we're able to partner with Alabama to be able to put this center there, be able to bring local law enforcement from all over the country, and really, quite frankly, we're going to be bringing people from all over the world to be able to train in this facility and continue to grow and collaborate with those that have the best technology, the best ability, work with the private-public partnership is invaluable. And we look forward to seeing what that's going to produce by 2028 when the Olympics are here.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We welcome you to the Rocket City. I recently introduced a bill, the Safeguard.
That's what it's called, is Rocket City?
Rocket City,
I didn't know
Huntsville,
that.
Alabama, the propulsion capital of the world. I recently introduced a bill, the Safeguard Act, to mandate that revenue collected through TSA's 9/11 passenger security fee be dedicated to bolstering aviation airport security. Can you speak to the importance of investing in security technology and what it would mean if Congress could end the diversion of these fees when it expires next year?
Right now, we're looking at rolling out new programs with TSA. TSA they touch more Americans and more people on a daily basis than any other government agency. And the top 20 or the top 10 of the top 20 airports that operate within the United States is actually privately ran TSA agents where we reimburse them for, but we only reimburse them for personnel. What we're doing now is we're going to roll that out even further and partner with public companies, private companies, to be able to bring in technology and have it run smoothly without decreasing our security, but increasing our security. There's a lot of technology that's out there that we're just not utilizing. We feel like when we really bring in the private sector, we'll be able to expand and be ready. Once again, we have 5 to 7 million visitors coming in for FIFA. We're going to have more than that in 2028 during the Olympics, and we need that process to continue to move without interruption.
I believe that it's about $5.50 per direct flight going anywhere. And what I want to do is get that money, just like you've said, where it's doing great things for safety. Switching gears, I want to commend DHS and the administration for their continued focus on strengthening operations and addressing the challenges along the southern border. Given the scale and the complexity of ongoing border security efforts, does DHS currently have the internal expertise and operational capacity needed to execute its large-scale initiatives on time?
Are you specifically talking about the wall?
What we're seeing there to carry out those initiatives, from protecting the southern border, the construction of the wall, those dollars that we've approved here.
We see the cartels are adapting right now because they had
election
availability during the last administration where they didn't have to invest in technology. They simply walked across, drove across, and rode across. And so what we're doing now is we're seeing that we discovered a tunnel for the first time recently in many years, and we're seeing more drone technology. So we're adapting, but we have the ability, and we definitely need more resources.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Chad, we're going to come back to this. We got Jesse Jackson's son, the late Jesse Jackson's son, is finna get ready to start questioning Marco Rubio. So y'all hit that like button. We got 93 people in the building. Double tap the screen. We got Jesse Jackson's son fixing the question Marco Rubio. Let's go. I'm going to appreciate everybody for rocking with me. Appreciate all the comments, but I need y'all to double tap the screen right now as we get ready for Jesse Jackson's son to come up and question Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio been under fire for 2 days straight. Double tap the screen, Chad. Let's go. Oh, shoot. Hold on, Chad. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Secretary Rubio. Great to see you again. Thank you for your forceful words in support of diversity, although there are some conflicting claims to what it means. Secretary Rubio, I stand before you not simply as a legislator, but as a witness to a moment in our nation's history when we are threatening to sever the sacred connection between our national interest and our moral obligation. This is a budget hearing, of course, but more than numbers on a page, we have to wrestle with the meaning of what those numbers mean to the.
This is Jesse Jackson's son, Chad. Representative Jackson. This is Jesse Jackson's son that's about to question Marco Rubio right now. Double tap the screen, Chad. Double tap the screen.
Lives of real people in real places whose very existence is bound in no small way to the decisions that we make in this room. I want to start by showing the American people what the dismantling of the diversity, equity, and inclusion means. Under your leadership, we are abandoning the continent of Africa. Would you put this up, please? The question is not what can we afford, but what we are willing to become. Under your leadership, the U.S. effectively has closed 31 consular operations across Africa and has 34 ambassadorships vacant. Under your leadership, we froze student, refugee, and valid visa processing to 26 African nations. Under your leadership, we have raised the tariffs on 30 emerging economies. Under your leadership, we have pulled out of the pandemic and healthcare aid for over 40 countries. Our diplomats used to operate in every region, culture, and society on earth, a workforce that reflects The diversity of our country is not a political objective. It is indeed, as well as you know, a strategic advantage, as you articulated. Africa and other developing nations are fast-growing and young populations represent one of humanity's greatest opportunities for shared prosperity, climate resilience, and democratic transformation. On global health, last year, the Trump administration cut off all funding to the World Health Organization. However, to prevent diseases from reaching our shores, the U.S. still needs the global outbreak.
I got to stop it right there, Chad. He said that Donald Trump cut off all World Health Organization funding. His dad supported that. Jesse Jackson supported America not funding NATO or the World Health Organization. He supported that.
And disease surveillance functions that the World Health Organization offers. Diseases, as you know, do not need passports or visas. In March, the Washington Post reported that the administration is proposing to spend more than $2 billion a year to recreate a system that you dismantled, such as laboratories, data sharing networks, and rapid response systems that you...
No, that wasn't right information. He supported Jesse Jackson, his daddy, supported not funding NATO, not the World Health Organization. I got that wrong. I got it confused. Jesse Jackson supported America pulling out of NATO. Let me get that straight, because I got confused on that. Not the World Health Organization, but NATO.
Abandoned when you withdrew from these programs. This is more than 3 times what we had contributed to the World Health Organization. That's waste, fraud, and abuse. How is reinventing the wheel at a significantly higher cost efficient for the American people? You know that. Let me just answer that. Since Eastern Congo and Uganda are currently experiencing the 3rd largest outbreak since it was discovered half a century ago, and your response was to criticize the World Health Organization that you had retreated from. Your statement in the administration's action revealed a retreat from our responsibility, a shrinking of the vision of America, and a devastating abandonment of those who have long looked to the U.S. not as a savior, but as a partner in the difficult work of survival and dignity. Moving forward, we would have questions on how the Trump administration plans to address global health crisis, if that is something the United States still wishes to have leadership in. Prior to 2026, U.S. global health was a model for the world. Its initiatives helped contain more than 250 diseases across more than 40 countries. But DOGE and this administration have not told the truth. They told the American people these cuts were necessary. Because I can assure you there's nothing necessary about denying medicine when people are suffering. There's nothing justified in weakening initiatives like PEPFAR and the Global Fund. I'll give you some time, which have stood as shining examples of what this country can achieve when it chooses compassion over indifference. As we look at the HIV crisis, and specifically in Zambia, according to a draft memo that was shared with you, prepared for you by the State Department on African Bureau staff, something that you care about, you considered withholding life-saving assistance to 1.3 million people with HIV in Zambia to force the government to sign a deal giving the U.S. more access to critical minerals. Do you consider it acceptable to use life-saving HIV/AIDS treatment as leverage for economic advantage? And in closing, over the Easter weekend, I was in Cuba doing an oversight to see, and your State Department refused to meet with members of Congress while they were out gallivanting and partying. In closing, I would like to ask you, will you invade Cuba? I yield back.
Well, I have 1 second to answer. What do I do? I mean, you guys tell me your rules here. I tried to write down all the stuff
you invade Cuba?
Well, that's not the only thing you said.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going to take my time to ask questions at this time, and I'll give you some time to answer.
Okay, because I do want to answer a lot of the points he raised.
So my questions are going to bear on this. I think there is a significant difference in the State Department today, and since you've taken the reins, versus the State Department under Secretary Blinken and under President Joe Biden. I'd like you to expand upon the changes that have been conducted, I think it's also incumbent for us to speak about things that just not everybody follows these things all day. I spoke about these things a little bit in my opener. The amount of attacks that have come against the United States of America by the hand of Iran, not in 47 years, just in the last 30 months prior to Epic Fury beginning. I referenced over 350 attacks, 200 wounded, multiple Americans dead, to include Specialist Moffett, Specialist Sanders, Specialist Rivers. We have been ongoingly attacked by Iran just recently. And the United States has largely done nothing about it. I think one of the things that's changed about us is that we are not going to be an America that gets attacked and pretends it never happened, ignores it, does nothing. That was a way of the past. So, Secretary Rubio, I'd love for you to discuss this and discuss the questions that were asked previously, and you have 3 minutes and 45 seconds to do so.
Okay, good. And I actually think they...
All right, guys, we got Marco Rubio about to answer those questions that Jesse Jackson's son just asked him. Bro, we got 100 people in the building, and we only got 15 likes, bro. Come on, guys. This is the Freedom of Speech channel. Hit the like button. Double tap the screen. We should have at least 80 likes, bro. Come on, guys. Double tap the screen. We got 100 people in the building. This is the Freedom of Speech channel, man. You can come over here, speak your mind. You know, you can come over here as long as you're respectable. Come over here and speak your mind. You know what I'm saying? We reacted to what's going on around the world. Come on, guys. Double tap the screen. You know what I'm saying? I gave up my monetization, guys, so we could have a place where we could come to and react and learn and educate one another and go, you know, have good conversations of going back and forth. Come on, guys. At least you can get me to 80 likes, bro. Come on, chat. Double tap the screen. Give me the 80 likes. Come on now. Y'all here commenting, you know, reacting with one another, double tap the screen. That's all y'all got to do. So more people can come and not only teach us, but can also learn and get an idea about what's going on. Come on, chat, let's go. Double tap the screen.
Dovetail, because there's a couple points. First of all, it's just absolutely false that we've abandoned the continent of Africa. As I've highlighted multiple times here on the diplomacy front, we are deeply engaged in the DRC and Rwanda peace negotiations. In fact, if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be any negotiations. We are deeply involved in the Quad effort with Sudan that involves the UAE on one side, Saudi Arabia on the other, and it's deeply complicated that we actually have helped host donor conferences. So we are very involved in all of those issues. As I pointed out earlier, we've been working very cooperatively with the government in Nigeria to go after a common threat, terrorists that want to aim at us but are threatening the nation state there now. And by the way, we're opening new areas of relationship like Equatorial Guinea, which is a country we really hadn't had much interaction with for many years, and now that's begun to flourish, and hopefully we can build upon that. In the case of the consular services, we've consolidated consular operations all over the world. And one of the reasons why is you can do it more efficiently. There are areas where literally the number of either visas that are not accepted or even applicants do not justify having a full-time station. We've done this repeatedly, not just under this administration, but previous administrations have done that. And so consolidation of consular services is not unique to the African continent. We've seen it in Mexico, where we're going to close one consulate because the cost-benefit analysis doesn't add up. On the World Health Organization, they basically covered for China during the COVID pandemic. Openly covered for China, refused to disclose the reality of what was happening soon enough, and didn't put the blame quickly enough on where it belonged. But not just the blame, it didn't allow researchers to be able to begin the work of, it took longer than it should have to develop a vaccine and other things because of their attitude towards that. And we have deep problems with the way the World Health Organization seems to play politics on behalf of some countries, and we pointed that out. Now, let me talk about a couple other things you raised. The Global Fund. The Global Fund is very happy. You should call them. They're very happy with us. They put out multiple statements about the work we're doing with that.
We are
fully
challenging
compliant.
his assertions, Chairman.
It's my time.
No, but I'm just telling you, the Global Fund, we are, for example, there's a 33% cap on what we give. The rest has to come from other donors. We are at that level right now. And if donors give more, we'll give more. We're committed to that. They're very happy with what we have worked out with the Global Fund. I think the other thing you didn't point out is we are not abandoning these countries or these programs. We're entering into compacts. 32 compacts, the majority of them in Africa, in which we go to a country and say, look, rather than force a bunch of NGOs from Northern Virginia on you, we are going to work with you. We are going to give the money government to government, and we're going to work in cooperation with your government to build up your national health system. So not only can you care for the patients you have now, but ultimately you won't have this problem for 5 or 10 years. And they want that. They welcome that. They do not want the ongoing dependency of aid.
Mr.
These countries
Secretary,
clearly
you know
want to
these
establish their own
people even
systems.
come over here because of visa.
Representative Jackson, you're not recognized.
I know, but on Zambia, look, we're not threatening them with anything. They just don't want to sign a compact. But you do raise an interesting point, not specific to Zambia, but broadly. Okay, there are a lot of countries we give a bunch of money to. You sit there and you say, okay, we donate $50, $80 million a year to this country. We do all the aid for that country. But all of the contracts, all of the rare earth minerals, all of the financial benefits, all of the commercial deals are with China. So explain to me, how is that good for the American people that we are in a country that we take care of all of their problems, but then all the economic benefits flow to China or some other country? That has to be talked about. How can I justify to the American people that we flood a country with American aid, but all of the commercial benefits in that country go to China or someone else over us? That is a legitimate thing to discuss with every country in the world that we give a lot of aid to. That is the reason why aid should not be separated from policy, because it has to reflect our national interest.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio. Representative Kamlager-Dove.
Dang, I want to see.
So, Mr. Secretary, 5 months.
I wanted to see Jesse Jackson respond to that. I wanted to see Jesse Jackson's son respond to that, man. We got 168 people in the building. Hey, what's up, damn media? What's up, damn media? I think I'm going to rewind that again, bro. I like that. I'm going to rewind this one more time, chat. I like this. I like this. This is Jesse Jackson's son questioning Marco Rubio.
Nation's history, and we are threatening to sever the sacred connection between our national interest and our moral obligation. This is a budget hearing, of course, but more than numbers on a page, we have to wrestle with the meaning of what those numbers mean to the lives of real people in real places, whose very existence is bound in no small way to the decisions that we make in this room. I want to start by showing the American people what the dismantling of the diversity, equity, and inclusion means. Under your leadership, we are abandoning the continent of Africa. Would you put this up, please? The question is not what can we afford, but what we are willing to become. Under your leadership, the U.S. effectively has closed 31 consular operations across Africa and has 34 ambassadorships vacant. Under your leadership, we froze student, refugee, and valid visa processing to 26 African nations. Under your leadership, we have raised the tariffs on 30 emerging economies. Under your leadership, we have pulled out of the pandemic and healthcare aid for over 40 countries. Our diplomats used to operate in every region, culture, and society on earth. A workforce that reflects the diversity of our country is not a political objective. It is indeed, as well as you know, a strategic advantage, as you articulated. Africa and other developing nations are fast-growing, and young populations represent one of humanity's greatest opportunities for shared prosperity, climate resilience, and democratic transformation. On global health, last year, the Trump administration cut off all funding to the World Health Organization. However, to prevent diseases from reaching our shores, the U.S. still needs the global outbreak and disease surveillance functions that the World Health Organization offers. Diseases, as you know, do not need passports or visas. In March, the Washington Post reported that the administration is proposing to spend more than $2 billion a year to recreate a system that you dismantled, such as laboratories, data sharing networks, and rapid response systems that you abandoned when you withdrew from these programs. This is more than 3 times what we had contributed to the World Health Organization. That's waste, fraud, and abuse. How is reinventing the wheel at a significantly higher cost efficient for the American people? You know that, let me answer that. Since Eastern Congo and Uganda are currently experiencing the 3rd largest outbreak since it was discovered half a century ago. And your response was to criticize the World Health Organization that you had retreated from. Your statement in the administration's action revealed a retreat from our responsibility, a shrinking of the vision of America, and a devastating abandonment of those who have long looked to the U.S. not as a savior, but as a partner in the difficult work of survival and dignity. Moving forward, we would have questions on how the Trump administration plans to address global health crisis, if that is something the United States still wishes to have leadership in. Prior to 2026, U.S. global health was a model for the world. Its initiatives helped contain more than 250 diseases across more than 40 countries. But DOGE and this administration have not told the truth. They told the American people these cuts were necessary. Because I can assure you there's nothing necessary about denying medicine when people are suffering. There's nothing justified in weakening initiatives like PEPFAR. It is shining examples of what this country can achieve when it chooses compassion over indifference. As we look at the HIV crisis, and specifically in Zambia, according to a draft memo that was shared with you, prepared for you by the State Department on African Bureau staff, something that you care about, you considered withholding life-saving assistance to 1.3 million people with HIV in Zambia to force the government to sign a deal giving the U.S. more access to critical minerals. Do you consider it acceptable to use life-saving HIV/AIDS treatment as leverage for economic advantage? And in closing, over the Easter weekend, I was in Cuba doing an oversight to see, and your State Department refused to meet with members of Congress while they were out gallivanting and partying. In closing, I would like to ask you, will you invade Cuba? I yield back.
Well, I have 1 second to answer. What do I do? I mean, you guys tell me your rules here. I tried to write down all the stuff
Will you invade
said,
Cuba?
Well, that's not the only thing you said.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going to take my time to ask questions at this time, and I'll give you some time to answer.
Okay, because I do want to answer a lot of the points he raised.
So my questions are going to bear on this. I think there is a significant difference in the State Department today, and since you've taken the reins, versus the State Department under Secretary Blinken and under President Joe Biden. I'd like you to expand upon the changes that have been conducted. I think it's also incumbent for us to speak about things that just not everybody follows these things all day. I spoke about these things a little bit in my opener. The amount of attacks that have come against the United States of America by the hand of Iran, not in 47 years, just in the last 30 months prior to Epic Fury beginning. I referenced over 350 attacks, 200 wounded, multiple Americans dead, to include Specialist Moffett, Specialist Sanders, Specialist Rivers. We have been ongoingly attacked by Iran just recently. And the United States has largely done nothing about it. I think one of the things that's changed about us is that we are not going to be an America that gets attacked and pretends it never happened, ignores it, does nothing. That was a way of the past. So, Secretary Rubio, I'd love for you to discuss this and discuss the questions that were asked previously, and you have 3 minutes and 45 seconds to do so.
Okay, good. And I actually think they dovetail because there's a couple points. First of all, it's just absolutely false that we've abandoned the continent of Africa. As I've highlighted multiple times here on the diplomacy front, we are deeply engaged in the DRC and Rwanda peace negotiations. In fact, if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be any negotiations. We are deeply involved in the Quad effort with Sudan that involves the UAE on one side, Saudi Arabia on the other, and it's deeply complicated that we actually have helped host donor conferences. So we are very involved in all of those issues. As I pointed out earlier, we've been working very cooperatively with the government of Nigeria to go after a common threat, terrorists that want to aim at us but are threatening the nation state there now. And by the way, we're opening new areas of relationship like Equatorial Guinea, which is a country we really hadn't had much interaction with for many years, and now that's begun to flourish, and hopefully we can build upon that. In the case of the consular services, we've consolidated consular operations all over the world. And one of the reasons why is you can do it more efficiently. There are areas where literally the number of either visas that are not accepted or even applicants do not justify having a full-time station. We've done this repeatedly, not just under this administration, but previous administrations have done that. And so consolidation of consular services is not unique to the African continent. We've seen it in Mexico, where we're going to close one consulate because the cost-benefit analysis doesn't add up. On the World Health Organization, They basically covered for China during the COVID pandemic, openly covered for China, refused to disclose the reality of what was happening soon enough, and didn't put the blame quickly enough on where it belonged. But not just the blame, it didn't allow researchers to be able to begin the work of, it took longer than it should have to develop a vaccine and other things because of their attitude towards that. And we have deep problems with the way the World Health Organization seems to play politics on behalf of some countries, and we pointed that out. Now, let me talk about a couple other things you raised. The Global Fund. The Global Fund is very happy. You should call them. They're very happy with us. They put out multiple statements about the work we're doing with that.
Can I challenge any of his
compliant.
assertions, Chairman?
It's my time.
No, but I'm just telling you, the Global Fund, we are, for example, it was a 33% cap on what we give. The rest has to come from other donors. We are at that level right now. And if donors give more, we'll give more. We're committed to that. They're very happy with what we have worked out with the Global Fund. I think the other thing you didn't point out is we are not abandoning these countries or these programs. We're entering into compacts. 32 compacts, the majority of them in Africa, in which we go to a country and say, look, rather than force a bunch of NGOs from Northern Virginia on you, we are going to work with you. We are going to give the money government to government, and we're going to work in cooperation with your government to build up your national health system. So not only can you care for the patients you have now, but ultimately you won't have this problem for 5 or 10 years. And they want that. They welcome that. They do not want the ongoing dependency of aid.
Mr.
These countries
Secretary,
clearly want to establish their own systems.
Come over here because of visa.
Representative Jackson, you're not recognized.
I know, but on Zambia, look, we're not threatening them with anything. They just don't want to sign a compact. But you do raise an interesting point, not specific to Zambia, but broadly. Okay, there are a lot of countries we give a bunch of money to. You sit there and you say, okay, we donate $50, $80 million a year to this country. We do all the aid for that country. But all of the contracts, all of the rare earth minerals, all of the financial benefits, all of the commercial deals are with China. So explain to me, how is that good for the American people that we are in a country that we take care of all of their problems, but then all the economic benefits flow to China or some other country? That has to be talked about. How can I justify to the American people that we flood a country with American aid, but all of the commercial benefits in that country go to China or someone else over us? That is a legitimate thing to discuss with every country in the world that we give a lot of aid to. That is the reason why aid should not be separated from policy, because it has to reflect our national interest.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio. Representative Kamlager-Dove.
Wow, that was good, Chad. That was a good exchange right there. Now we're going to go over here to Mullen. He getting grilled too. Here we go, Chad. Appreciate y'all for joining. We got 200 people in the building. Double tap the screen. We got 200 people, 230 people in the building now. Double tap the screen. This is the Freedom of Speech channel. I am your host, the one and only Stock Sniper. Double tap the screen. Let's continue.
Have you ever had a visit to Delaney Hall for an oversight visit?
No, I have not.
Thank you. The Department of Homeland Security was meant to safeguard the people, our homeland, and our values with the legal obligation to observe the basic human right and due process for everyone on U.S. soil. We have seen former administrations support transparency and cooperate with congressional oversight. Unfortunately, Trump and his administration are doing the exact opposite. This is a humanitarian crisis happening in my district at Delaney Hall Detention Facility in Newark, New Jersey. We're talking about Newark, New Jersey, Delaney Hall Detention Center. Recently, more than 300 detainees sent an SOS letter about the torturous conditions they face inside. After that letter, detainees went on a hunger strike to protest spoiled, rotten food, lack of medical care, and violent and unsanitary conditions. I have spoken to these people. I have seen these conditions with my own eyes. Detainees and their families have told me that the food served inside Delaney Hall is green and rotten, even containing live worms. They report that shower walls are covered in black mold and that toilets are backed up in what can only be described as an overflowing sewage. They are not given adequate cleaning supplies, and they are told that they must use paper towels and their own toothbrushes sometimes to try to get the facility to a safe level of cleanliness. Detainees and their families also share horrific accounts of being dumped into solitary confinement cells after surgery for medical observation and remaining there for months without any actual medical care. There are three detainees currently right now at Delaney trapped in this medical isolation right now. Sometimes when I visit, no doctor is present. No doctor. When the doctor has been there, they have known almost nothing about their patient's care. There were pregnant women in there without getting any OBGYN care, that the doctor didn't even know where they go for outside services. Tragically, 2 pregnant women miscarried after their emergencies were dismissed as psychological frenzies by GO staff. Additionally, when they tell members of Congress about these conditions, when they participate in hunger strikes, when they try to seek help, they face retaliation in this facility and from ICE. Communication access is revoked, visitations are cut, and even worse, things happen to them. Instead of addressing these inhumane conditions and attempting to solve them, this administration has chosen to weaponize DHS to cover up the abuses. Thankfully, Secretary Mullen, you are here today to answer some of these questions that my colleagues have. The Department of Homeland Security issued official statements calling the hunger strike a complete fabrication, while quietly transferring 15 women from Delaney Hall to a facility in Louisiana soon after the hunger strike began. Along with other detainees, they were transferred. One of those women transferred is a victim of medical neglect who miscarried. I will continue to say his name as well. 41-year-old John Wilson Brutus. He died within 24 hours of entering in ICE custody at Delaney Hall, and ICE passed his death off as natural causes. And even as family members and civil rights groups practice their constitutional right to peacefully protest, federal agents tased, pepper sprayed, and put them arrest arrest. Inside Delaney, officers beat detainees in Unit 2A and 2B, pepper sprayed them, and proceeded to cut off their communication with family and their attorneys by placing them under lockdown. Secretary Mullen, Unit 2A and 2B. Hopefully you're taking notes. This department has doubled down on partisan showmanship as well, even threatening to stop the processing of international flights in cities like mine in Newark, because they don't like that Americans are protesting inhumane conditions and demanding oversight and accountability. This is not a matter of politics. The American people are concerned by what they hear and are unwilling to give their hard-earned tax dollars to what is happening. Lastly, Secretary Mullen, you talk about racism a lot in today's hearing. You know what's racist? Is the fact that every detainee in Delaney Hall is a person of color. The cruelty runs to the top of DHS, weaponizing your president and this administration racist grievances. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Lalota, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here and for your leadership and all your hard work to help secure our awesome homeland. I know, Mr. Secretary, that your short tenure as Homeland Security Secretary, you fought hard to ensure our people have the resources they need to do their jobs. In light of the DHS shutdowns, you've properly advocated for our people that they receive compensation for their
to whether it's Russia, Iran, other places that have been bad actors. Sanctions are only as good as your willingness to enforce them. And we are finally seeing this administration, with your advocacy and others, and Treasury, to enforce those sanctions. Anthony Blinken sat there where you are not that long ago, and I had to remind him he had a problem on his hands because I'm vice chair of the Financial Services Committee. There's a number of Financial Services Committee members who are on this committee. We actually write the sanctions, and he basically would come in and say, don't worry your pretty little head about all these confusing sanctiony things. We got a handle on it. You finally do. Thank you.
Representative Almo.
Secretary Rubio, welcome back. I want to start where we left off last year. You told me, quote, we're going to do more food aid than any country on the planet times 10. That was your promise. But the facts tell a different story. America might still be the world's largest food aid donor, but we certainly don't provide 10 times more food aid than our peers. In fact, under your watch, America's food aid contributions have been cut by more than half to roughly $2 billion. It should be very clear that America's strength has never come solely from our might. It comes from our alliances, our credibility, and our values. You didn't just eliminate programs, you created vacuums. vacuums where violence and instability are rising, that extremist groups are filling, that competitors like China are exploiting, and vacuums that are making Americans less safe and less prosperous. And you hurt Americans here at home with your policy decisions. Shuttering USAID wiped out more than 23,000 American jobs, while Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies got rich off of corrupt deals. Peanut farmers in Texas and sugar farmers in your home state of Florida lost market access because of your cuts. So Secretary Rubio, before slashing food aid programs, did you conduct any analysis whatsoever on how many American jobs would be lost, how many farms would be hurt, and how much damage would be done to local economies and small businesses?
Well, because we know all of those will still be part of the new programs we've created and are creating. But the second point I would make, American foreign aid programs are not a jobs program. Although they employ Americans, and we want it to be helpful to Americans, and that's why.
So you're okay hurting the farmers in your home state?
The World Food for Peace program, for example, now we've transferred it to U.S. The Agriculture Department. They're in a better position.
Well, you're
to be
talking
able
about
to
a
execute
hypothetical
on it.
future where you fix past mistakes, but farmers have been
These aren't past
struggling over the
mistakes.
last
That's where it
year.
belonged in the first place, because it's helpful. The farmers have more direct input there than they would at the State Department. As to your point about us cutting aid, not only are we we donate more than the next 4 countries combined. We do more than anybody else.
But we went down, and there are consequences. Look, from where I sit.
But why are we in charge of feeding everybody?
This is not about charity. This is about our economy and values. I didn't say that you got to do it all, but you can't cut when you know without analysis that bad things are going to happen.
But we replaced. We have new programs that are actually working better.
Well,
It's getting food to
Mr.
people
Secretary,
faster.
if I may, from where I sit, you, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, you got together, you made these cuts blindly because you did not say that you conducted any analysis. You just said we cut because we have a hypothetical future that we are trying to create, which is not a serious plan. And that's not regard for the economic damage to our farmers, to our small businesses here at home who are feeling that pain. And moreover, you've had lives lost. And I want to get to that point. I want to introduce you to Mary Sunday. She is behind me, and after your food aid cuts decimated the World Food Program's ability to feed the Kenyan refugee camp she lived in, Mary's 7-month-old daughter, Santina, died of malnutrition. This is the only photo Santina's parents have of their daughter. Before Santina died, you looked me in the eye in this room, and you said, "No children are dying on my watch." She was a child. She had a name, a family, a future ahead. Now she's gone. She is one of over 500,000 children who died last year after your administration pulled the plug. Yesterday, I heard your testimony. You said you're seeking outcomes with foreign aid programs, but the outcome that I see is dead kids. So, Mr. Secretary, I want to ask you again, and with a real direct answer, please. Were you lying to Congress when you claimed no children were dying on your watch, or did you simply never bother to calculate the human cost of your decisions?
That number you're throwing around is a false number. It's a false number. And not only that, you're equivocating that the death of an individual's responsibility of the United States.
There are 500,000 others.
No, those are false. That's
Mr.
a false
Secretary,
thing.
the numbers are there.
No, the numbers are not
Here's
there. The
thing.
numbers are opinion
you
of
have,
experts
you have
who
a
got their
narrative to
contracts
share.
cut.
Mr. Chairman,
These
I
are
want to
people that
enter
got
into the
their
record these articles that show last year alone, over 155,000 children died from malnutrition. Over 126,000 children died from diarrheal diseases. Over 165,000 children died from pneumonia as a result of these cuts. So here's the deal. You promised more food aid, instead there were cuts. You promised America first, and said American workers, who you said aren't a priority for you. You said it's not a jobs program. They lost their jobs. You promised strength. Instead, we have lost influence, credibility, and trust. And you promised children weren't going to die. You said that to me right here. You promised peace as well. Instead, your illegal war of choice with Iran is driving up fuel prices and grocery costs while putting millions more at risk of hunger worldwide. This is not about charity. This is about values. So whether it's negligence or ideology, the result under your watch is the same. Weaker alliances, higher costs, dead children, and a less secure America.
result is
so
we spend more money than-
my time is expiring. So I'm going to take these seconds to say, what are you going to do to clean up the mess that you
Representative's
created?
time has expired. Representative Davidson is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for your faithful service to our country.
One thing I just wanted to say as part of any negotiation.
The point 8, and they're in.
Haven't strategically been able to succeed, and part of that's because the United States hasn't been united behind it. And I guess towards that end, you've stated missions here. We're clearly not united as a country in Iran. So briefly, what authorization do you need to carry out further operations in Iran?
Well, that's contemplated now. They're all within the president's powers, in our view, under the Constitution, to address imminent and emerging threats against the interests of the United States. If those circumstances were to change, we would obviously engage Congress in that conversation. We would always welcome congressional support. We'd like congressional support, but that's not going to stand in the way of the president addressing an immediate threat to the United States or an emerging threat to the United States that requires him as commander-in-chief to protect our people and our country.
Well, the cause is just. and I yield.
Representative Mfume is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, good afternoon. I was going to say good morning, but it's starting to run past us. We all obviously sit here in America in what has been known as the greatest deliberative body in this democracy, and in a nation that is the strongest, the wealthiest, the most powerful, the most influential nation that the world has ever seen. America's military might has no rival. However, America's moral obligation continues to be called into question. And I want to talk a little differently about something that doesn't get the attention that it should get, and I want to associate myself with the remarks from my colleague from Rhode Island. Globally, over 122 million people are forcibly displaced all over the globe due to conflict, due to persecution, due to human rights violations. They are in the Sudan, they're in Syria, they're in the Ukraine, they're in Myanmar, they're in the Congo, and they are in Gaza. And so I want to take the time that I have to talk about Gaza, since no one seems to want to talk about it anymore, now that there is a tentative ceasefire. But there's also a number of...
Yeah, I've been saying that. You never really hear about Gaza that much anymore. I was saying that like 3 or 4 weeks ago. We don't hear about Gaza that much. All we hear about is Iran and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't hear them talk about Gaza.
Children, teenagers, seniors, and others that are living in Walla. They have no real medical care that is sufficient for their needs. They are displaced because of this humanitarian crisis that we see. And for months, the issue was that Hamas was not allowing people in. Well, that's not the case right now. And we see what was supposed to have been tens of trucks going in each day down to a trickle, not carrying food, but carrying a lot of commercial supplies. More than 6 months into the ceasefire, about 1.7 million Gazans, Palestinians, are still living in tent camps. They're facing a surge, as you probably know, in rodent-borne disease, with reports of more than 70,000 cases of parasite infections, related illnesses, since the beginning of this year alone. Many, if not most of them, are children, young children, who are trying to find a way to survive, who are also growing up with memories of what happened to their parents, with a great deal of hatred in their heart towards America, towards Israel, toward anybody that they thought may have been a part of that. I just want to point out two things. When the 20-point peace plan was enacted and talked about by President Trump, it included point number 7, which doesn't get a lot of attention, and that is that the mandate that a full amount of aid would be sent into Gaza and into the Gaza Strip at a quantity of 600 trucks a day. It also included another point, point 8, that entry and distribution of this aid would proceed without any interference from any outside or internal force. So if we are, in fact, the strongest, the powerful, the most wealthy, the most influential nation on the face of the earth, it would seem to me that while we are doing all these other things around the globe, Mr. Secretary, that we ought to have a humane reaction and response to what we helped to create there. I mean, it is not just war-torn, it's ravaged, and people are dying every day, even as this hearing takes place. because they can't get medical attention. And so Gaza is not over with. That chapter and page is not turned. Those persons, the Palestinians that live there, really need help. And I would strongly urge the State Department, in addition to what you may be doing, to have someone and to have a process to come up with ways through UNRWA and other organizations to meet the need. Many of the international organizations are facing a monetary crisis, and so they don't have the ability to do what they are empowered to do. But this is still the United States of America, and we still have an obligation. And we cannot let children die en masse because we think that a ceasefire has created a new reality. The reality is still the same on the ground there. So I would urgently ask that when you come back before the committee, that you try to address that, or even before then, or if you want to share some information, please do, because time is of the essence. I yield back.
Representative Lawler.
Mr. Secretary, as chairman of this committee's Middle East and North Africa subcommittee, I've been monitoring closely the administration's operations in Iran and appreciate the many conversations that we have had. I commend both you and President Trump for your decisive actions against the regime. Illicit oil trade between.
I think if you see how it's reported on Iranian state television and things of that nature, it makes them think that somehow our hands are going to be tied and we won't be able to do anything to them, so why make a deal?
Appreciate it.
Representative McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for joining us today. Like you, I attended the Munich Security Conference earlier this
some privately. But I think the president's irritation with NATO is that in a
Yeah, Chad, I think I'm ending right here. It's been a 2-hour live. Appreciate y'all for joining. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. This is the Freedom of Speech channel. I am your host, the one and only Stock Sniper. We still got 95 people in the building. Subscribe to the channel, cut on all post notification bells. As you can see, you can come over here and speak your mind. You know, it's all good over here. You know, we do this type of thing, this type of show every single day. So you can come over, speak your mind. You know, it's all good over here. So with that being said, I love and I appreciate y'all. We got 92 people in the building. It's not going to take much. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel and double tap the screen to activate the like button. We had 84 votes today. Did you hit the like button? 75% of the people said done. 25% of the people said doing it now. So we had a good turnout today. I appreciate y'all for rocking with me, man. I hope y'all learned something. You know, I hope you learned something. That's the whole point of this. Hope put something on your mind. Hope this stuff that we are watching put something on your mind and let you know how these people operate. No matter how you think about it, you know, it's good to watch and listen, you know, and take notes, right? And research it for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I love and I appreciate y'all. To the next one, I'm out.